What if everything you've been taught about spirituality, self-discovery, and the nature of reality was merely a sanitized version of something far older and far more powerful? Imagine for a moment that the core truths of existence, the laws that shape your mind, body, and destiny, have always been within reach, yet carefully kept from your grasp. You scroll through life thinking you know how the world works, reciting ideas about manifestation, energy, and the universe aligning like mantras you've heard 100 times before. But what if I told you that the most important piece has been missing all along? Would you feel betrayed? Or worse, would you feel nothing at all? That's the real tragedy, not the deception, but the numbness it created. A civilization sleepwalking through its own potential, not because the knowledge is gone, but because it's been buried beneath centuries of distortion, ritual, and comforting half-truths. Hermeticism isn't just another mystical philosophy from some forgotten age. It is the root system behind nearly every major spiritual and esoteric tradition the world has ever known. And yet, how many people have ever truly heard of it? How many have sat with the words, "The all is mine," and felt the seismic shift in perspective it brings? The answer, very few. Because for centuries, this knowledge has been deliberately suppressed, not by accident, not through the slow erosion of time, but by design. It was hidden by religious institutions that feared its power, silenced by empires that thrived on obedience, mocked by modern systems that promote only what is profitable, controllable, and easy to digest. And the result? You live in a world where the truth is right in front of you, etched into ancient stones, whispered through symbols, encoded in stories, but you've been conditioned not to look, or worse, to shrug, to feel that subtle drowsiness of apathy. It doesn't really matter. It's just old myths. I don't have time to think about that. But deep down, something in you knows better. There is a pull, a stirring, like a long-forgotten memory trying to break through the fog. That memory is Hermetic wisdom. It does not ask you to believe. It demands that you observe, that you test, that you experience reality not through someone else's interpretation, but your own consciousness. This system of thought predates modern religion, yet contains the seeds of all faith. It speaks not to gods, but to laws, universal principles that govern thought, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, correspondence, and gender. And here's what no one tells you. These laws are already operating in your life whether you know them or not. Every success or failure, every burst of joy or wave of despair, every coincidence or setback, none of it is random. It's patterned, predictable, shapeable. But to shape it, you have to see it. And to see it, you have to wake up. The moment you begin to truly understand the Hermetic principles is the moment everything changes. The illusions that once seemed solid begin to dissolve. The ideas you clung to fall apart like paper in rain. What remains is not confusion, but clarity. And it hits you, not with a whisper, but like a lightning strike through fog. This isn't just spiritual theory. This is the operating system of the universe. Suddenly, every half-truth you were fed, about luck, about fate, about divine punishment or random chaos, feels like noise. And with that clarity comes something unexpected. A strange stillness, even a kind of coldness. Not from lack of care, but from the sheer scope of what you've just uncovered. You realize how long you've been asleep, how long we all have, and a deep sense of neutrality begins to settle in, like the eye of a storm. You're no longer shocked, you're no longer outraged, you're simply awake. And that is where it begins, not with awe, not with anger, but with the quiet acceptance that nothing is what it seemed. From that space of surprise and detachment, you are finally ready to go deeper, not because someone told you to, but because now you need to know. You start to realize it slowly, like waking up from a dream where something important was always just out of reach. That ache in your chest, the one you thought was personal, emotional, even existential, was never about one person, one mistake, or one failure. It was the deep, ancient grief of forgetting, of being made to forget. When you look back, you see the signs were always there. The way sacred texts were edited, rewritten, sanitized. The way mystics were burned, silenced, exiled. The way libraries were reduced to ash and their contents lost not to time, but to power. There is a grief in that, not just because knowledge was destroyed, but because the destruction was intentional. Generations were robbed of their birthright, the tools to know themselves, to heal themselves, to shape reality with clarity and sovereignty. And no one told you. No one told your parents. No one told your teachers. So instead of empowerment, we were handed obedience. Instead of wisdom, belief. Instead of the ability to shape reality from within, we were taught to beg outside of ourselves for guidance, for favor, for miracles. And the bitterness of that realization doesn't come all at once. It builds quietly. A subtle sadness when you recognize how much of your life has been spent searching in the wrong direction, asking the wrong questions. You remember all the times you prayed and got silence. All the times you tried to manifest but felt powerless. All the times you blamed yourself for failing, not knowing the system was never designed to make you succeed. And then something shifts. The grief becomes anger. Because when you dig deep into the history, when you see how Hermetic knowledge was hidden, discredited, demonized, you realize this wasn't just neglect. It was suppression. The Catholic Church once deemed Hermetic texts heretical. The Corpus Hermeticum was almost lost forever. Gnostic writings were buried or destroyed. Alchemists and mystics were hunted, not because they were dangerous to others, but because they were dangerous to the system. These teachings did not offer rebellion, they offered freedom, and that freedom was intolerable to those who built kingdoms on blind obedience. Your sadness turns to rage, not chaotic, flailing rage, but the sharp, cold fury of betrayal. You realize that millions, no billions, of souls have wandered through life confused, anxious, lost, while a small few held the map in their hands and never shared it. You realize the lie wasn't just in what was hidden, but in what was given instead. Spiritual traditions built around hierarchy and shame. Modern philosophies that sell watered-down truths for profit. Positive thinking that skips over the work. Manifestation that ignores the law of cause and effect. You begin to see the machinery of it all. The influencers selling instant enlightenment. The institutions promoting distraction. The algorithms feeding you content designed to sedate your soul. And now that you see it, you cannot unsee it. There's no going back. The old comfort is gone, and in its place is a quiet rage. Not because you're weak, but because you were kept weak. Not because you lacked potential, but because you were taught to deny it. The sadness is real, and so is the anger. And both are necessary, because now you understand what has been stolen, not just information, but time, potential, lifetimes spent wandering in the dark, thinking the light was something you had to earn, instead of something you were born with. That's the cost of forgetting. That's the price of silence. But if you're here, if you're hearing this, then it means something inside you is ready. And maybe, just maybe, it means it's not too late to remember. And then it happens. Something shifts, not with thunder or lightning, but with a quiet awe, a realization so pure it feels like sunrise after centuries of night. You've spent so long grieving what was taken, angry at the lies, lost in the fog of half-truths. But now, a different feeling stirs, a spark. You begin to feel joy, not the fleeting kind that comes from praise or reward or some passing success. No, this is different. This is the deep, soul-rooted joy of finally recognizing what was always yours. It's the joy of remembering, not learning, not discovering, but remembering. Because the truth is, Hermetic wisdom doesn't feel foreign. It feels familiar, like an ancient part of you that's been patiently waiting for you to come home. When you read that the all is mind, you don't just understand it, you feel it. You sense it in your thoughts, your emotions, in the strange synchronicities that have always danced around your life like whispers. You look back and see the patterns, the way your intentions shaped outcomes, the way your fears manifested problems, the way your inner world always mirrored your outer one, even when you didn't realize it. And you smile, because it's all starting to make sense. The confusion begins to unravel, and in its place comes a lightness, a sense of clarity you didn't think was possible. Like someone wiped the fog from the window and for the first time, you see the design, the beauty, in everything. That's when the joy really begins to rise. You laugh, not because anything is particularly funny, but because the weight has lifted. Because now you understand you are not broken. You are not unlucky. You are not lost. You were just unaware. You were walking in the right direction the whole time. You just didn't know there was a map. And now, with this wisdom in your hands, life begins to unfold differently. Every moment becomes more vivid. You catch yourself speaking more deliberately, choosing your words with intention. You observe your emotions instead of being consumed by them. You begin to feel energy in places you never noticed before. the silence between breaths, the way someone's presence changes a room, the magnetic pull of your own focused thought. It's like reality is responding to you in a new way. Or maybe it always was, and now you're finally listening. And it's beautiful, truly, breathtakingly beautiful. Not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because you no longer expect it to be. You see the cycles now, the rhythms. You understand polarity, the dance between light and dark, expansion and contraction. You no longer fight it, you flow with it. And with that surrender comes power. Real, grounded, joyful power. You're no longer begging the universe to fix you. You're co-creating with it. You're no longer afraid of contrast or challenge because you know they are doorways. You're no longer chasing happiness. You're living from it. This is the kind of joy that doesn't fade. It deepens. It matures. It moves from excitement to quiet confidence, from the thrill of rediscovery to the peace of alignment. And that surprise, that wide-eyed awe that's still flickering behind your smile, it stays with you. Because every time you apply a principle and see it work, every time your thoughts shape your world, every time your energy shifts a conversation, every time you witness the cause and effect unfolding with precision, you are reminded again, this is real, you are powerful, and they were wrong to make you forget. Something begins to rise inside you. It's no longer just clarity. It's momentum, no longer just understanding, but action itching beneath your skin. After the joy of rediscovering what was lost comes the spark of something even more electric. Energy. Real, vital, unstoppable energy. You feel it in your chest, in the center of your being, a kind of buzzing presence that says, go. It's not chaos, it's charge. And for the first time, you're not afraid of it. You're in awe. You realize you've spent years thinking your fatigue, your numbness, your disconnection were personal failing. But now you see the truth. You weren't lacking willpower, you were misaligned. Your energy was trapped, misdirected, drained by false beliefs, toxic loops, and illusions of limitation. But now, the dam has cracked, the current is flowing, and you can barely believe the difference. How could something so fundamental have been hidden for so long? You were told that energy was just a matter of sleep or diet or coffee, but now you know better. Now you know its frequency, its focus. It's the alignment between your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And when all three lock into place, you don't just feel better, you feel charged. Alive in a way that makes the old versions of you feel like ghosts. This is what the Hermetic Masters meant when they said, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. They weren't speaking metaphorically. They were describing a reality most never get to taste. But you're tasting it now. And it is delicious. You wake up and the world looks different. You walk into a room and sense the undercurrent. You speak and feel your words carry weight. You're not raising your vibration because you read it in a meme. You're doing it because you can feel what low vibration does to your body, your mind, your breath. You've become sensitive, not in a weak way, but in the way a skilled musician is sensitive to pitch. You notice when something is off, and more importantly, you know how to tune yourself back into harmony. The excitement of that realization is wild. You're no longer a passive receiver, you're a conductor. You're no longer waiting for things to improve, you're directing improvement. You're no longer fearing energy swings. You're riding them. You stop being surprised by synchronicity and start expecting it. You smile at coincidence because you know it's just correspondence in motion. The universe is responding because you are finally responding to it. And that enthusiasm builds. You want to read more, learn more, apply more. You start tracking the cycles of your energy, aligning your tasks with your peak flow states, avoiding environments that drain you like poison. You become more discerning, less tolerant of mediocrity, not from arrogance, but from an internal standard that refuses to be dimmed. This is the fire of the Hermetic current flowing through you. And it's exhilarating. What surprises you most is not just how good it feels, but how natural it feels. Like this was always meant to be your baseline. Like your real self wasn't hidden. It was simply unplugged. And now that it's powered on, you wonder how you ever accepted anything less. You begin to understand the deeper reason why this knowledge was buried. Because a person who knows their energetic power is not only dangerous, they're uncontrollable. A person who can shift their own vibration is immune to manipulation. A person who lives in harmony with universal laws becomes a force of nature. You are becoming that force. Not one day, not in the distant future. In real time, and the momentum is building. You feel it in your breath, your heartbeat, your choices. You're no longer surviving, you're activating. and that, more than anything, fills you with a sense of joy so vibrant, so alive, it borders on ecstasy. Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because for the first time, you are. There's a moment that comes after the rush, after the awakening, the excitement, the wild momentum of rediscovery. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself with fireworks or thunder. It arrives quietly, like a sunset folding into the horizon. And in that stillness, you feel it, pride, not the kind that boasts or seeks applause. This is different. This is the gentle, glowing pride that lives in your bones. The kind that says, I made it back, I found my way home. It's a strange feeling because it comes with a shadow, a soft sorrow, not regret exactly, but something close. You think of the years you spent asleep, the times you ignored your intuition, the moments you gave your power away, thinking someone else held the answers. You remember how lost you felt, how far away the truth seemed, and it hurts, not because you blame yourself, but because you now see how unnecessary that suffering was. You realize how many days you spent in survival mode, disconnected from the blueprint of your own being. You think of all the energy you gave to people who didn't understand you, all the love you withheld from yourself, all the time you spent chasing worthiness in a world designed to keep you chasing. And your chest aches, not just for you, but for everyone still running that race. But then you breathe, and in that breath, something shifts. That ache doesn't crush you. It softens you. It reminds you why this path matters, why you cannot go back. And as you stand there, between who you were and who you are becoming, you feel a grounded happiness begin to take root. Not the fleeting high of moments, but the enduring satisfaction of real growth. You start to see yourself differently, not as someone late to the truth, but as someone brave enough to claim it. That's no small thing. It takes courage to unlearn, to break patterns, to question everything you were taught to believe. And you did that. You were doing that. You didn't just stumble upon hermetic wisdom. You recognized it. You remembered it. You chose it. And that choice, that's what changes everything. Because it wasn't easy. You had to let go of illusions. You had to confront your shadows. You had to take responsibility for every part of your life. And now, standing in the clarity you carved with your own hands, you feel proud. You earned this peace. You built it, not by pretending everything was fine, but by facing the truth and rising anyway. You look around at your life and start to see the subtle shift. You notice how your relationships begin to reflect your inner alignment. You feel more honest in your conversations, more deliberate in your actions. You stop performing. You start living. And there's joy in that. Deep soul-level joy. You no longer need external validation to feel worthy. You no longer wait for permission to be powerful. You simply are. And that realization brings a kind of contentment that is rare in this world. A quiet joy that comes from knowing you are aligned with something real, something ancient, something eternal. You feel it when you read the Hermetic principles and recognize their truth not just intellectually, but viscerally. You feel it when you make decisions from intuition, not fear. You feel it when you look back at your former self, not with shame, but with compassion. That person did the best they could with what they knew. And now you know more, so you do better. And that is something to be proud of. Not the kind of pride that separates, but the kind that reconnects. Because when you reclaim your power, you don't become arrogant. You become humble. You realize how precious it is, how sacred. You want to protect it, share it, live it fully. Not because you need to prove anything, but because you can't help but shine. You've come so far. And though the road ahead is still unfolding, you walk it now with steady feet, a clear heart, and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you've returned to your truth. You remember who you are, and in that remembering you smile. Because despite everything, the lies, the losses, the long detour through darkness, you found your way, and now you will never forget again. There comes a moment when inner awakening demands outer movement, when knowing is no longer enough, when your bones begin to stir with a restlessness you can't ignore. You feel it rising now, not just excitement, but a fiery urgency, a pulse that says, do something. You've walked through the shadows, remembered who you are, and tasted the clarity of truth, but now that truth wants to become real, embodied. And that realization is both exhilarating and terrifying, because now the universe is watching, waiting, not to punish or test you, but to see if you're ready to become what you say you believe. And deep down, You know this moment has been coming. You feel it in the tightening of your chest, in the way your breath quickens, not from fear of danger, but from the weight of potential. Because the truth is, stepping into your power doesn't begin in grand gestures. It begins in small, sacred defiance, saying no when you used to stay silent, choosing alignment over comfort, changing one belief, one behavior, one breath at a time. And yet, even as this fire builds inside you, part of you trembles. Not because you're weak, but because the path ahead is vast, unknown. You sense the scale of what you're stepping into, and it stirs something primal, the ancient fear of becoming too big, too bright, too free. But this time, something's different. You're not paralyzed by that fear. You're energized by it. It lets you know you're on the threshold of transformation. You see now that the systems around you, media, education, even parts of modern spirituality, were never built to empower you. They were built to contain you, to keep you small, safe, predictable. But now that the walls are down, you feel the raw air of freedom. It's electric, it's unfamiliar, and it's yours. But freedom isn't comfortable. It doesn't come with a map or guarantees. It comes with risk, with responsibility, with the kind of vulnerability that feels like standing naked in a storm. But you've outgrown safety disguised as limitation. You've outgrown pretending not to know. And that awareness cracks something open. You start looking at your life differently, not with judgment, but with radical honesty. Where have I been asleep? Where have I traded truth for approval? Where am I still hiding? And suddenly, change doesn't feel optional. It feels inevitable, not because someone told you to change, but because your own soul is refusing to stay quiet. You begin to make moves, some small, some seismic. You shift your schedule to align with your energy. You speak truth where you used to shrink. You walk away from dynamics that no longer reflect your worth. And each choice, each step, reinforces the current. You feel more alive with every action, more sovereign with every boundary. But the world doesn't always clap for your awakening. Some people pull away. Some mock your clarity. Some challenge your change because it threatens their comfort. And that's where the fear creeps in again. What if I lose people? What if I fail? What if I'm wrong? But then you remember, those questions aren't roadblocks. They're invitations. Invitations to choose yourself anyway. To keep going, not because it's easy, but because anything else would be a betrayal of your truth. You were not given this spark to keep it hidden. You were not handed these keys to stay behind closed doors. You are being asked to live louder, to walk bolder, to become the walking expression of hermetic wisdom. Not just through words, but through embodiment. And that means showing up even when your voice shakes. It means acting with integrity when no one is watching. It means trusting that the unseen laws you've studied are real, not just in theory, but in every moment of your life. And in that trust, something powerful awakens. A deeper joy, a fiercer courage, a wild aliveness that can't be bought or taught. It is earned through choice, through action, through presence. And now it's your time. You stand at the edge of who you were and who you're becoming. The air is thick with possibility. Your heart beats like a drum of war and wonder. And though your hands may shake, you know, you are ready. Not because the fear is gone, but because the fire is stronger. Something strange happens when you finally begin to live your truth. It's not just liberating, it's disorienting. At first, there's a joy that feels almost otherworldly. You wake up lighter, colors seem brighter, time moves differently. You feel connected to everything in a way you never knew was possible. You're no longer reacting to life, you're co-creating it. And there's pride in that, a deep, quiet joy that comes from watching yourself show up differently, speak with clarity, and choose alignment over approval. You feel like you've cracked a code that most people don't even know exists. And yet, almost immediately, a wave of panic follows. Because as your energy shifts, your old world starts to collapse. Not metaphorically, literally. Relationships start to feel strained. Your job begins to feel empty. Your habits, your environment, even your internal thoughts, they all begin to resist the new frequency you're holding. And it's terrifying, because while you're glowing on the inside, the world around you begins to crumble. You start to see the cracks in everything you once believed in. The conversations that used to feel safe now feel shallow. The patterns you used to ignore are now impossible to unsee. You feel like you're straddling two realities, one foot in the truth, the other in the remnants of your former life. And it's here, in this strange in-between, where the real test begins. Because joy and terror now walk hand in hand. You laugh and cry in the same breath. You feel unstoppable one moment, then completely alone the next. You look at your old life, the roles you played, the masks you wore, and it hits you. You can't go back. Even if you wanted to, you no longer fit into the mold that once confined you. You've outgrown it, and that knowing is both exhilarating and heartbreaking. You grieve, not just the people and places you're leaving behind, but the version of yourself that survived long enough to get you here. That version who coped, who endured, who tried to belong. You thank them, and then, with trembling hands, you let them go. Because now, you are building something new, something real. And while that creation is thrilling, it also demands everything from you. No more hiding, no more shrinking, no more betraying your inner voice to keep the peace. You're done dimming your light to make others comfortable. You're done pretending you don't know what you know. But with that comes a raw kind of fear, the fear of losing everything familiar. You wonder, will they still love me if I don't play the role anymore? Will I belong anywhere if I no longer fit their version of me? And underneath it all, what if I fail? What if I build this new life and it all falls apart? But then, in the middle of that panic, you remember something important. You've already survived the worst part, forgetting who you are. Everything after that is expansion. You realize that this fear you're feeling, it's not a sign to stop. It's confirmation that you're breaking through. Growth is not a smooth, graceful climb. It's a messy, trembling rebirth. And every step you take now is sacred. You begin to hold yourself differently. Not as someone chasing a dream, but as someone becoming the dream. You start to trust the signs, the synchronicities, the intuitive nudges. You realize that while the external world may feel chaotic, your inner compass is finally calibrated to something true. And that truth, your truth, is unshakable. So you keep walking, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when the fear roars louder than the joy. Because something deeper guides you now. Not hope, not faith, but knowing. You know who you are. You know what you came here to do. And even when the world trembles around you, your center holds. That is what Hermetic wisdom does. It doesn't just change what you believe, it changes who you are. And once that shift takes root, there is no going back. You are the alchemist now, the initiate, the creator. And yes, the road is uncertain. Yes, you may lose people. Yes, you may stumble. But what you gain, clarity, sovereignty, joy that radiates from within, is worth everything it costs. You've come too far to stop now. Let the old world burn. Let the illusions fall. Because from these ashes, you will build something real. And the next time the fear rises, you'll smile. Not because it's gone, but because you know you're strong enough to feel it and keep going anyway. This is it. The moment the mirror no longer reflects who you were, but demands who you are becoming. You've heard the truth, felt the tremors of awakening move through your chest, and now, there is only one thing left. Action. Not the kind that waits for permission, not the kind that seeks validation, but the kind that rises from the deepest part of you with a silent, burning clarity. This is your crossing point, and though the fire of excitement dances in your belly, it brings with it a tension, a holy pressure, because now you know what's possible, and that knowing can no longer be unknown. You see the patterns, you feel the laws, you understand in your bones that you are not here to obey the illusion. You are here to shape reality. That's not just empowering, it's terrifying, because it means you're out of excuses. You can no longer blame the system, the past, or the people who failed to see you. You can no longer wait for the right timing or the right teacher or the right plan. The truth is, the only thing between you and your highest reality is the version of you who still hesitates, who still doubts, who still wonders if they're worthy of holding that kind of power. And to that version I say, it's okay to be scared. Of course it is. This isn't a small shift. It's a total unraveling, a cellular reorientation. The path of mastery is not linear, it's not safe, and it's definitely not comfortable. It's messy, it's unpredictable. It will cost you everything you no longer need, but in return, it will give you everything you came here to claim. Your voice, your vision, your vibrational sovereignty. That is what Hermetic wisdom unlocks. Not magic tricks, but mastery. Not escapism, but full-spectrum embodiment. This isn't about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming real in your relationships, in your work, in your breath, in your presence. And that level of embodiment can't be faked. It's not aesthetic, it's energetic. The moment you begin to truly live these laws, to speak as if your words shape reality, to walk as if every step alters the field, you become untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you're finally aligned with the laws that have always been running the show. You are no longer a pawn, you are a player. But here's the part no one wants to admit. Most people will walk away from this moment. They'll feel the call and ignore it. They'll convince themselves they're not ready. They'll go back to their distractions, their scrolling, their spiritual window shopping, pretending they didn't hear the truth echo in their bone. Because real transformation demands real responsibility, and most are terrified of what they'd have to let go of to become free. But you, if you've made it this far, you're different. You didn't just want knowledge. You wanted power, and not the kind that controls others, but the kind that liberates you. You wanted to remember, and now you have. So the only question that remains is the one you must answer with your life. What will you do now that you know? Because once you say yes to this path, there is no going back. You will see through lies instantly. You will feel the frequency of truth. You will no longer be able to tolerate the games, the masks, the cages. You will crave depth, alignment, integrity. You will stop chasing. You will start magnetizing. You will stop asking for permission. You will start giving yourself full access to the field of creation. And the moment you truly claim this, life responds. The universe doesn't hesitate. It meets you where you stand. The doors open. The synchronicities arrive. The old crumbles. The new reveals itself, one sacred step at a time. But only if you walk. Only if you move. Only if you say, with your whole body, your whole breath, I'm ready. And yes, your hands may shake. Your voice may tremble. Your path may be uncertain. But the fire is real. The laws are real. And the time is now. So choose. Not tomorrow. Not later. Because if you don't claim this power, someone else will. And they'll use it to shape the world around you. But if you do claim it, if you live it, you will no longer be a product of your reality. You will become its source. This is not a fantasy. This is not a myth. This is a transmission. And the message is simple. You are not here to follow. You are here to remember. You are here to rise. You are here to create.